Hello everyone, and welcome to these video capsules that trace the history of St. Boniface Hospital through a number of different themes. St. Boniface Hospital is a major healthcare facility, active in the fields of healthcare, teaching, and research. It is located in the heart of Winnipeg's Francophone neighborhood, St. Boniface. It serves the people of Manitoba, northwestern Ontario, and parts of Saskatchewan. The St. Boniface Hospital complex is situated on the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that have been concluded in these territories, and we acknowledge the wrongdoing and mistakes of the past. Recognizing that we are all subject to the treaties, we are dedicated to creating a world that is more loving and compassionate, and in which we all move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. In 2021, we celebrate the 150th anniversary of this storied building, and that's why I'm here today. In this first episode, we will explore the history of St. Boniface Hospital and how, since its inception 150 years ago, it has played a leading role in Manitoba with the support of the community. The St. Boniface General Hospital was founded in 1871 by the Grey Nuns. The Manitoba Legislative Assembly decided to give $500 to the Grey Nuns. This contribution was to be renewed each year for the needs of the hospital and its orphanage. These funds were renewed because, although the sisters were Catholic, they welcomed and served patients regardless of religion, ethnic, or socioeconomic background. They served everyone. In the wake of the 1890 law that abolished French as an official language in Manitoba, the anti-French movement was in full swing. The Grey Nuns were themselves French-speaking, so the government was reluctant to continue its financial support. However, the Grey Nuns offered bilingual services, and the hospital welcomed patients who came from St. Boniface, but also and especially from Winnipeg. The province, therefore, decided to maintain this financial contribution in the midst of this linguistic crisis. This provincial aid marked the beginning of the official recognition of the St. Boniface General Hospital as a true Manitoban institution. The hospital, managed by the Grey Nuns, quickly found its purpose and legitimacy. From an establishment with 10 beds in 1877, it expanded with 60 new beds towards the end of the 1880s. And in 1894, a new 3-story wing was built with 2 operating rooms for a total of 125 beds. This hospital kept pace with Winnipeg and grew along with the local economy. This brings us to 1905, when a third expansion allowed the hospital to reach a total capacity of 400 beds. If the very beginning of the 20th century saw the hospital grow, in 1914 it experienced a great shakeup. Many doctors had to register for military service when the First World War broke out. During this sad period, the hospital lost more than half of its staff. To cope with these losses, a great appeal was launched to medical students, along with requests for exemptions from the Military Service Act to ensure the presence of medical personnel, and thus the operation of the hospital. Very soon after the war began, in January 1915, the hospital began to receive soldiers from the 28th Battalion who had been wounded in action. By the end of that year, 300 beds were reserved for the soldiers, and by the end of the war, the hospital would have treated a total of 7,743 soldiers. This period was also marked by the Spanish flu. A total of 1,375 cases were treated at St. Boniface, including both civilians and soldiers. The hospital's resilience in the face of great challenges was again demonstrated in April 1950. The Red River behind the hospital experienced a major flood and threatened the building. The bedding in the basement had to be moved in a hurry. And for the better, because on May 5th, the hospital is filled with 2 feet of water. The flooding was so severe that the firefighters had to intervene, create a dike, and stay on site until the danger was over. The first patient would return to the hospital on May 29th. The flood of 1950 was followed by an even more serious one. In 1997, after a particularly harsh winter with many snowstorms, the city experienced a blizzard so severe that it triggered the second flood of the century. Once again, patient safety was compromised because the Red River was threatening to flood the building. But thanks to the emergency response plan in place, the hospital is spared. The hospital's resilience in the face of challenges and expansion goes hand in hand with the unwavering support of its community. From the very beginning of the hospital, the community has been mobilized to help the institution flourish. In 1887, for example, Archbishop Taché organized paid concerts to finance an expansion. In 1905, a $200,000 debt was recovered thanks to a fundraiser. And in 1951, a new 8-story wing was built thanks to multiple donations that raised $2 million. And that's without counting the volunteer associations that carried out fundraising initiatives, always with the aim of supporting the hospital. The first association was created in 1890, Les Dames de Secours, which organized collections for the hospital and the Sisters' Orphanage. Then came Les Dames Patronesses, Les Dames Auxiliaires, Les Auxiliaires of St. Boniface General Hospital, volunteer services, as well as Les Marguerites and Les Jeunes Volontaires. The spirit of compassion, so essential to volunteers, is well rooted at the hospital. In 2020, before the COVID-19 pandemic, the hospital still had 314 active and involved volunteers. This immense support from the community became official in 1971 with the creation of the St. Boniface Hospital Foundation, chaired by Senator Gildas Molgat, to support research and quality patient care. 35 years later, in 2006, the $100 million mark in donations was passed to advance research. Some great philanthropists have also given their name to wings or departments, such as Israel Asper, after whom the I.H. Asper Clinical Research Institute was named, following a $5 million donation. Or Paul Albertson with the construction of the Albertson Research Center after $7 million in donations, and also Martin Bergen with the construction of the Bergen Cardiac Care Center following $2 million in donations. In 1969, the St. Boniface General Hospital officially became a secular institution, and Anthony Quaglia became its first secular president and CEO. This transition was in keeping with the legacy and the traditions of the Grey Nuns. In fact, when the province created the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority in 1997, the St. Boniface General Hospital, with its unique mission and heritage, was able to retain its own management. The hospital remained in the hands of its board of directors. It was also in 1996-1997 that the hospital was designated as a cardiac care center. 10 years later, in 2007, all cardiac surgeries were centralized at the St. Boniface General Hospital. And as of 2009, all cardiac services are gathered on 3 floors in the I.H. Asper Institute. In the 2000s, the Grey Nuns are no longer able to manage the vast workload of running the hospital. The Catholic Health Corporation of Manitoba, now called the Compassion Network, was established to take over the supervision. But the Grey Nuns were still on the board of directors, including Sister Faye Wiley, who was in charge of the transition. The legacy of the Grey Nuns lives on. The Compassion Network now focuses on maintaining the values and mission of these pioneering women who are focused on the human. In fact, the Compassion Network will even work together with healthcare institutions to revive the spirit of the Grey Nuns and their original values, in particular, this very strong spirit of compassion. For example, recently, the Healing Through the Arts program showed this willingness to go beyond the medical dimension to include the human dimension, essential to healing, and even more so in the context of the pandemic, where visits and contacts are reduced. This holistic vision of the human being has led to the introduction of several activities in music, notably a partnership with Artists in Healthcare Manitoba and the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra, but also in the visual arts with the Buehler Gallery. Although historically known as a general hospital, the health facility changed its name in early 2020 to St. Boniface Hospital. It now has a tertiary care mandate in the province of Manitoba and is focused on providing specialized care, always in keeping with its primary human-centered mission. A mission from which the hospital has not wavered, 150 years after its creation. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we witnessed the unparalleled and limitless dedication of our staff at all levels. In 2021, we are more aware than ever that reconciliation with the Indigenous peoples is a major priority for all Canadians, and the hospital administration wants to put the Indigenous culture back at the heart of its institution. The construction of an Indigenous hub in the center of the hospital's administrative pavilion will include a new smudging room. Our primary concern is the well-being of our patients. So let me introduce you to the hospital's biggest renovation project, which is scheduled for 2025, a brand new emergency room. Since its creation 150 years ago, St. Boniface Hospital has managed to surmount all of these challenges with the unfailing support and exceptional presence of the community. I am sure that with this same support and the compassionate values on which the Grey Nuns built this hospital, our institution has many more wonderful years ahead of it. And in our next video, we will be discussing these same values.